The seventh edition of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States Summit came to a close on Tuesday in Buenos Aires as St. Vicent and the Grenadines assumed to pro tempore presidency of the regional mechanism. In Peru, President Boluarte blames the violence in the country on the demonstrators, ignoring the repeated denunciations of repressions and violence by the army and the police. One 157 people died in Afghanistan as a result of a recent snowstorm and extreme cold affecting the country. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the TeleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. On Tuesday, the seventh Community of the Latin American Caribbean States Summit, CELAC, which brings together 33 nations, come to a close in Buenos Aires with the presidency passing from Argentina to St. Vicent and the Grenadines. The return of Brazil to regional mechanisms marked the seventh edition of the summit, with Brazilian President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva declaring that his country is now back in the region and looking forward to strengthen regional integration after former President Bolsonaro has suspended its counting participation in 2020. Among the issues discussed were the multiple crises in the world, pandemic, to climate change, economic debt, international blockades, food insecurity, and far-right threats to democracy. The leaders stressed the importance of regional unity to overcome such obstacles. As the CELAC summit closed, its pro tempore presidency passed from Argentina to St. Vicent and the Grenadines.
We have many challenges ahead of us. We have heard everyone, all very interesting words, and we have to face those challenges together. We have yet to face the challenge of the European Union meeting, which I understand will also have a lot of relevance. Once again, thank you very much. Without further ado, we would now put to consideration the vote so that during 2023, CELAC pro tempore presidency be held by St. Vicent and the Grenadines in the person of its Prime Minister, our friend Ralph Gonsalves.
During his participation at the regional summit, Colombian President Gustavo Petro denounced the violations of the Inter-American System Treaty that have occurred during the last few years and spoke in defense of Peruvian President Pedro Castillo.
We have to continue to maintain violations of the Inter-American system despite the fact that our government signed the treaty in the past. Why do there have to be parliamentary and violent coups? Why are popularly elected presidents in prison when they should be at this table? Why are the political rights of any citizen being violated by administrative and even parliamentary authorities when the charter that we all signed in 1972 does not allow the violation of the political rights of any citizen if it is not by sentence of a criminal judge?
In his speech, the Colombian president also stressed that Latin America needs a democratic path with shared benefits between right and left wings governments.
It is time that the Inter-American system put to the order of the most powerful 21st century allows for a democratic pact in our territory, where the right and the left do not believe that when they come to power it is to eliminate their opponent physically. This coming from the Colombian president, who has seen in his land thousands of leaders of the Colombian left murdered. There has to be a democratic pact as it was proposed in 1972. If we come to power from the left, it is not to imprison the right. In Latin America, there should not be a single political prisoner.
During the press conference at the 7th CELAC summit, Santiago Cafiero, Minister of Foreign Affairs, expressed the need to strengthen the negotiations regarding climate change in order to foster comprehensive development within the region.
Thirdly, environmental and disaster risk management cooperation. With this goal, right from the outset of presidency pro tempore of CELAC, we decided to raise the visibility of the consequences of climate change and the particular effects this has on the Caribbean states, while at the same time strengthening the regional position with regard to negotiations on climate change in order to foster comprehensive and sustainable development in the region within the context of a just.
In his speech, the foreign minister also highlighted that we have carried out many activities to foster integration in the region.
Culture and education for our people. In 2022, we carried out many activities to foster integration in a region, ensuring the universalization of access by young girls and women and adolescents to the educational system, working towards digital education, also making headway in preparing youth around the world to engage with new technologies and knowledge-based services.
Honduran President Xiomara Castro Zelaya, during her address at the Latin American Summit, said the far right is relentless, and while they speak about progress, they plan coups against democratically elected governments using their media, machinery, economic boycotts, and law enforcement.
They are primarily responsible for the plundering of our natural resources and of the accelerated deterioration of the environment and climate change. From the Rio Bravo to the Patagonia mountain range, we are waging a common battle against neoliberalism. It has only brought poverty, hunger, and misery. Only if we come together, we will be able to brace ourselves against the fierce attacks of neo-fascist forces that are trying to make the selfish interests of the great economic powers prevail over those of our peoples.
We'll take our very first break now, but remember, you can now follow us on our TikTok account, TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. Peruvian President Dina Boluarte assured in a statement that the demonstrators are the sole responsible for the violence in the country, despite reports of police repression with lethal weapons.
There are videos where it seems that one of the men who are in this protest takes a huaraca, and it's not a huaraca. It is a weapon that shoots and kills the comrade who is next to him. Or from a private property, a shot is fired and kills someone who is in the protest. It is not the police who are shooting.
The Peruvian president also assured that the protests in Puno and Apurimac were financed by drug trafficking, illegal mining, and smuggling.
This is not a peaceful protest. This is a violent action generated by a group of radical people whose agenda is political and economic. And this economic agenda is based on drug trafficking, illegal mining, and smuggling, which is why this protest has been geographically located in Puno and Apurimac.
President Dina Boluarte's statement are not supported by the latest report of police and military excessive use of force with lethal weapons in the city of Puno, where there is clear evidence of a member of the National Police shooting indiscriminately at demonstrators. Police repressions have reportedly left more than 60 dead and about 1,500 people injured since the beginning of the protests against the government. In Peru, human rights organizations and independent lawyers will denounce the government of Dina Boluarte and his police chief for violation of human rights during the intervention in the Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos.
24 hours, the university students and peasants detained at the Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos were released, bringing with them testimonies of mistreatment and humiliation.
Most of us had been beaten. The university students got the worst of it. A young lady was grabbed here and her blouse was ripped, and I think there are witnesses saying that other university students have been touched.
A total of 194 people were detained by hundreds of national police, some of them peasants from the southern regions of Peru and other students living in the university's residence. All claim to have been victims of abuse during the intervention. What I have is a bruise from the fact that at the time I was handcuffed, not only did they tell me to get down on my knees, not only did they talk to you in an aggressive and abusive way, but they also pulled you, and if you spoke more, they would hit you with a stick. The mistreatment was not only physical, but also psychological.
They say get down on the ground, get down on the ground, and we were running and the tear gas bombs, the helicopter. I said at what moments they were shooting, they called us terroristas, terrorists on the ground, and so on, and they were shouting insults at us.
According to some specialists, this is a clear violation of human rights, since there was never any presence of prosecutors or representatives of the Ombudsman's office.
This situation is used for different purposes. Firstly, to intimidate people. Secondly, to treat them as second-class people. And thirdly, at the head of these 195 people, to tell them that anyone who comes to Lima is going to be treated in this way. It is a humiliating treatment, a discriminatory treatment that only dictatorships have implemented in this country.
They also consider that this is a terrible precedent of violation of university autonomy.
If the only solution is to repress the population, it is a dictatorship. It is a dictatorship. At what point did the Attorney General come out to defend the rights of all those who have been mistreated up to now? Consequently, it cannot be said that this is a democratic government because there is no democracy here. They are silencing our mouths.
Human rights organizations and independent lawyers have been gathering information and evidence to criminally denounce those responsible in the government and the national police before national and international justice agencies.
Jaime Herrera, TeleSUR, Lima, Perú.
Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro receives the credential of the appointed Spanish ambassador Ramón Santos Martínez. The event confirms the full recognition by the Spanish government of Venezuela as a constitutional president, and this way both nations reestablish the relations of cooperation and understanding. President Nicolás Maduro had reiterated many times in the past that only with diplomacy and respect both countries could move on. The Kingdom of Spain have not been represented by any ambassador in Latin American countries since 2020. In Ecuador, new recording comes to light of the alleged corruption scheme involving the management of public companies and irregular appointments of ministers in the government of Guillermo Lasso. Our correspondent Henry Pillajo from Quito gave us more details.
In Ecuador, the digital media La Posta shows new recordings of the corruption scheme that involves officials and relatives of Guillermo Lasso. There are conversations between the alleged operators of the network, Rubén Chérez and Danilo Carrera, brother-in-law of the president, where they talk about the interest in appointing ministers in the government.
Let's see, I already have the name. That one is going to be the minister, right? Okay, confirmed. Okay, don't worry. That one is already confirmed as minister. Anyway, tomorrow I will check that he sends it to me first thing in the morning.
2 weeks of complaints in the government structure recently led to the dismissal of Luis Verdesto, now former anti-corruption secretary, who, prior to this resignation, submitted a first report on alleged irregularities in the strategic public companies operating in the electricity sector and the oil fleet.
I believe that the country, the great country, the people are scandalized and are very concerned. They are not reacting as they should react to something like this, because they are concerned about not being killed on the streets or that they will not have any food to give their children every day, because that is the permanent issue of this government.
The revelations and complaints of corruption in strategic sectors that are connected to men close to Guillermo Lasso, known as the Great Godfather, have been dismissed by the government.
Corruption has not spread in my government. Hernan Luque Lecaro has fallen into the temptation of earning dirty money, but it cannot be generalized in my term of office.
Analysts say that the government's anti-corruption discourse has electoral purposes.
It is about using this catchphrase against corruption, crime and insecurity in order to win electoral votes. On the one hand, from a rhetorical point of view, there is the establishment of a platform to fight corruption, but in practice this is not the case.
The alleged corruption structure in the public companies administered by Guillermo Lasso's government is being investigated by the Attorney General's office in the so-called meeting case.
Henry Pizarro, TeleSUR, Ecuador.
We have more news coming up after this final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. In Japan, heavy snowfall caused the death of at least one person and forced the cancellation of almost 400 domestic flights. At a press conference, the Nippon government spokesman reported at least one death as a result of the snowfall and said that it is being investigated whether the death of two more people are due to the same cause. On the other hand, Japan Airlines and All Nippon Airways has already accumulated 177 and 111 cancellation flights, respectively, to which dozens of more have added in low-cost airlines. On Tuesday, the Taliban officials said in Afghanistan 157 people have died as a result of the recent snowstorm and extreme cold affecting the country. The toll doubled in less than a week as a million face extreme temperatures with minimal humanitarian aid. The country is suffering one of its coldest winters with temperatures plummeting to minus 28 degrees Celsius in early January. According to a report by the State Minister for Disaster Management, deaths are reported in 24 provinces with hypothermia and carbon monoxide poisoning being the main causes of death. The Muslim community in Afghanistan and Pakistan demonstrate against the weekend's burning of a Quran in Sweden by a right-wing activist. Citizens in Kabul and Islamabad expressed their disapproval of the action of the right-wing extremists who set fire to a copy of the Muslim holy book in the city of Stockholm. Afghan authorities also demand that the Swedish government take appropriate steps against the perpetrator to stop Islamophobic and anti-Muslim acts in its territory. The incident has also strained relations with Turkey and Sweden following the Nordic countries' request to join NATO.
Today's protest, attended by a great number of people of cost, demanded through a declaration that the international community and the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation bring to justice the person who burned the Quran in Sweden.
We will protest against the disrespect that they have shown to the Quran in Sweden. And we will emphasize to the international community that such actions don't achieve anything except hurting the sentiment of Muslims. We will protest this. In the coming days, we will adopt better measures and do whatever possible on the diplomatic and political levels.
And we have come to the end of this brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.